Brown bag session. So as many of you are aware, brown bags are a series of sessions that we run in Renew, which cover topics of interest. It can be a wide ranging set of topics. We usually have speakers who are internal or external, depending on, essentially a topic of interest. So today we have Abhishek, and it's completely voluntary. Which means that if any of you would like to volunteer for any subsequent sessions on any topic which you think would be an area of interest for renewers, please do volunteer for these sessions. And these are called brown bag sessions. So, which essentially means that it's a congregation of renewers from different departments to come together and use some time out of the day-to-day routine to learn something new. So I'm very happy to welcome Abhishek to lead this particular session for us. Abhishek is an expert in the distribution space, recently joined us from the Delhi distribution company, and he has a very interesting blend of experience in the technology space as well as in the utility space. And he therefore brings in a blend of using technology and digital solutions in the utility area or the distribution area, which is where the entire distribution space is headed. So he's very kindly volunteered to spend this hour with all of us and share some insights in the space of distribution, because this is a fast changing segment and a big opportunity area for Renew from a business standpoint. So Abhishek, thank you so much for taking the time out. And we have a lot of people who are here, and a lot of renewers who are joining online as well. So welcome, and look forward to the session.
Thank you, Garima. Am I audible, everyone? Online, offline, both? Thank you. Okay, my name is Abhishek. As Garima said, I joined recently, not so recently, almost 6 months now. 27th of this month, I'll be completely 6 months at Renew. And prior to this, I was working with a discom in Delhi, which is called BACS, and managing their system operations, power system, load forecasting, and power management. Apart from that, all the renewable activities. When I say renewable in distribution, there are two kinds of renewable. One is utility scale PSAs and PPAs that you sign, that is one. And the other one is the distributed renewable, distributed. So both I used to handle. So with that limited piece, I'll now take you through the next 1 hour, the time slotted over here. Now, this I have titled as power distribution, utilities and retail, what are the opportunities and way forward, etc. I have divided that into 3 sections. Does it work? Doesn't, is it? This is leisure, okay. It was working earlier, no problem. Yeah, thank you. So this is how it is structured today. We'll talk about a brief on how the power distribution sector looks like in India. Then we talk about what are the different operation verticals, what we know about this as a discount.
Sorry to interrupt. I think the mic, your caller mic has switched off, Abhishek. Can you just check once again? I'm not able to hear you.
I'll take this hand mic. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can now. Great. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry for this. Yeah. So the second part is we'll talk about the discom operations in the verticals in a discom, how it looks like, and we'll talk about utility of future. Here I have borrowed something from SEPA, which is Smart Electric Power Lines. And this, they had done a study for United States market, how the utilities there are shaping up, especially in view of a lot of green energy and distributed energy resources penetration happening over there. So that has a lot of relevance for us in India also to learn. We will talk about it. What are the opportunities that we see at Renew, that we see here in our organization from those things? And obviously, what are the key enablers? So we'll talk about recent changes in the regulations, etc., which has happened. Now, this slide actually can be looked onto from two ways, actually. One is you can see that, okay, these things are nothing. I'm sorry for this small font, but these things are nothing but stating the inefficiencies. But then this also talks about the big picture. So how it is big picture? So the traditional one, the unidirectional flow, as we all know, from the generation, transmission, then sub-transmission, STU, that is state transmission utility, then the discoms, and then it does the distribution over here. Of course, you have a DER over here, and these are consumers as well as prosumers. Now, apart from thermal, you also have utility scale where we have a lot of presence over here. So, in fact, we are the largest REIPP by the capacity operational in our country. Anyway, and then here you have the government, the regulations, the regulators, CEA, etc. And these things are these small boxes I'll read out for you are the challenges that we are facing. For example, here, the long-term PPAs which have been signed up by the utilities. So you have a fixed cost burden. We'll talk about that. And apart from that, that is also, there is something called scheduling compulsion of minimum technical limit. For example, a thermal station has a minimum technical limit of minimum of 55%, okay, of the unit's rated capacity. So that much has to be scheduled. So that limits the inflow of the renewable energy. So that is also an attribute of the flexibility of the thermal generation. So that is there, which is limiting the inflow or influx of the renewable energy into the system by the discoms. Even if they have an RPO, renewable purchase obligation, that is limiting it because they are going to be in surplus. Even if you purchase RE at say maybe 2 rupees 50 paise or 3 rupees, you have to sell it on the market maybe at a very low rate. I'm not talking about the last 6 months of the market state, because that has been an aberration. That cannot be seen as a normal routine. So that is one portion which is happening over here. And there is an inefficient cost optimization. Why? Even if you follow the merit order dispatch. Now, what is merit order dispatch? The discoms in India, they do self-scheduling. So suppose you have 40 PPAs with 40 odd plants. You will stack them in the order of their variable cost declared by them, certified by the respective SLDC. And from bottom to top, that means the highest tariff becomes at the bottom and the cheapest VC becomes at the top. Now the topmost has to be scheduled or dispatched the first, and then in a bucket filling approach till the time you meet the demand. The idea is on a day-ahead basis, we are all doing a zero deviation scheduling. So whatever your demand is, the schedule has to be the same. Otherwise, you pay a deviation settlement mechanism penalties. So that is as per the grid code. Okay. So just stop me wherever you want. You feel like I should stop and explain a bit, please do so. Anyway, both are online and offline, both, please. Now, apart from that, now you will have wonder why PPAs were mandated, and long-term PPAs, 25 years, why so? I mean, those were the days, I mean, you talk about 60s, when the demand forecasting was not that much accurate, okay? And in fact, there was no need to. Why? Because country was growing, economy was growing. So the point was like this, you put up stations and you will have the demand. That was the thought process. And you can't put up the stations just like merchant. Government tried merchant capacities, but mega power policies, if you remember, about 10, 15 years ago, but that was not very highly successful. In fact, IPPs initially were not very, very successful in merchant capacity. So these long-term PPA, bankable PPAs, they can be funded by the banks, the lenders, easily at a good rate. When I say good rate, that translates into a good tariff, which is acceptable, palatable by the respective regulatory commissions, so that you can sign the PPA. Otherwise, no point, actually. If you discover a rate of, say, 5 rupees a unit, VC I'm talking about, regulatory commission says, boss, I'll allow only 4 rupees. Who takes the hit for 1 rupee per unit? The plant will never get a PPA approved by the commission. So in that scenario, the long-term PPA is what I'm trying to say, where the need of the hour. Now, today, a lot of variability is coming on the supply side. The demand side was always variable, but supply side is also becoming variable. And there is need to change the mix of the supply also. So therefore, since the variability is there on the supply side and the demand side is also very much variable, there is a Am I audible now? Online?
Yes, you are. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. चलेगा ना? कोई दिक्कत नहीं है? So when we talk about the long-term PPAs today, when you have variable renewable energy, variable demand also, so there is a need to make your systems also more variable yet flex or firm. What does it mean? It means, as you know, from the point of view of transmission regulations, anything the contract more than 7 years is termed as a long-term contract, long-term PPA. Now, the ability to predict the generation of the RE for a longer term is a question. We can't do an accurate day-ahead forecasting as well. We means not only Renew, anybody else in the globe also. Apart from that, the demand forecasting 10 years along down the line is also not very accurately predictable. We have seen the EPS by the CEA, Central Electricity Authority, going bad. I think 17th EPS over projected the demand, basis which transmission capacities were planned, generation capacities were planned, and they were standard. So then they corrected in 18th, and the current one I think is 19th EPS. Electric power survey, by the way, that is where they project the demand state by state, medium term, short term, and long term. Okay, so that resource planning exercise long term is also not very effective. So natija kya hoga? You have to figure it out what is that appropriate mix where the short term also comes into play, because the certainty is there in the short term, more certainty is there in the short term. You can predict more accurately next 2 years compared to next 20 years, both RE as well as demand. So that's what I'm saying is there is a change in the mix which is happening over here, the supply mix, and not only from the utility side but also from the demand side. We'll see, we'll have some slides over there. So the issues, the big picture which I'm trying to portray over here, the issues relate to operational, regulatory, and technological, both all the three. Operational, when I say, I talked about MTL, minimum technical limit issues. Then self-scheduling, that means the ramp rate of the individual plants. The grid code says 7 to 8 time blocks. So if you effect a change now, it will be reflected only 7 to 8 time blocks. So in this time block, many things have changed. Demand will change, the RE generation will change. So many things are there. So we can't rely upon.
Sorry to interrupt. I think the mic has gone off again. Neelam, can you just check if Ravi is in the room? What's the issue there? Mic is going on and off again.
No, let me use that mic. That is not a problem. It will keep on switching on and off. Yeah. Thank you. Is it on now?
Yeah, this is good. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll continue with this. Sorry for this. Okay. Now, Section 14 and 15 of the Electricity Act define distribution. You can see over here. Okay. This is a licensed business. So anybody who has to do the distribution, which is both wire and content. So when you have been given an area, you are obliged to manage the network. So that means you have to maintain the supply. Supply has to be maintained not only in terms of the wires, but also in terms of the power purchase or the power availability at the customer's end or the meter end. Okay. So both carriage and content, they are all regulated entities. The discoms, whether a state discom or a private discom, whether they are, if they are a distribution licensee, I'm not talking about the distribution franchisee. That is a different ball game. If they are a distribution licensee, they are at par as far as Electricity Act is concerned or regulatory mechanism is concerned. Only thing is, yeah, so the private discoms, like for example, Delhi Discom, which is a PPP, public-private partnership, 49% government of Delhi stake and 51% the private. In other words, it is also known as investor-owned utility, majority owned, not 100% owned, majority owned. Just like you have in California, for example, they are majority owned or 100% owned also. So they also are bound by the same regulation. Just like, for example, you have UPPCL, Uttar Pradesh Power, or Haryana Dakshin, whatever it is. What is the crux? The crux is the rate of return of equity post-tax is 16%. That's what the utilities get paid on the regulated rate base admitted by the Honorable Commission, irrespective state. That is the earning. Apart from that, and this is limited to obviously 30% of the regulated rate base, the normative equity. Apart from that, whatever cost is there subject to due diligence, that is a pass-through. Okay, so this is a assured rate of return of 16% post-tax, which is available in the business. Whatever you capitalize, you are able to get it. Now, the discoms do not make or lose money by just selling or purchasing power. Okay, there is a misconception saying that, okay, if my consumer base grows up, I'll be making more money. Not by the way or mean of selling power, no. But if your consumer base grows up, you are investing more and more in your network. Okay, then you are capitalizing them. Then you make money, not by the way of increasing the sales. Yeah, and this comes with a rider. Why? Because the term you might have heard of AT&C loss, aggregate transmission, and then there is a T&D loss. So AT&C loss captures the T&D loss, that is transmission and distribution, also called as distribution loss, which is a technical loss, as well as collection efficiency of the discom. Okay. Now, if your losses are high and there is a skewed tariff, and therefore the birth of a concept called open access. What is open access? So any consumer above a certain threshold can apply for connectivity, I mean getting the power from any other source other than the parent discom. Why it happened? Why did it come to the place at all? The point is like this: if the losses are high and you are not able to match your average cost of supply with the average ARR or annual revenue requirement, there is a gap, ACS is more, then there is a problem. You are eating up your ROE or the profit because you are funding that loss from your profit. Otherwise, you would have been able to retain this 100%. Okay, we'll talk about those in the coming slides. So the crux is like this: nearly 50% of the discoms cost is fixed. We'll see how in the next table, in the next slide. Whereas only up to 20% is, sorry? Okay. 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 Now, only 20% of the revenue which the discom appropriates by means of tariff is fixed. Can you see the skew here? So the discom is organized or and 50% of them are fixed in nature. Irrespective of the consumers consume or do not consume, the discom has to bear this cost. But the consumers, they are contributing only up to 20%. Balance is being from the energy. This is another challenge. Why discoms consider any.
Abhishek, sorry, I think there's something wrong with this mic also. I'll just check with Needham backend. Can you just speak on the podium mic in meantime? I'll just work with Needham to sort of figure this out. I don't know what's the problem, but it seems all those mics are getting off.
This is also off. Yeah, she's right. Okay, I'll use the podium mic for the time being. Okay.
Yeah, this is good. Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. Okay, so there is a skewedness in the revenue which is being appropriated by the discom vis-a-vis the fixed cost, and that is the reason why discoms oppose any measure which takes away the consumer from the fold of the discom, be it a high-paying revenue consumer or a low-paying revenue consumer, whatever it is. More so the higher one. Why? Because they are also cross-subsidizing the lower consumer. So by the way, the utilities comprise of all the kinds of consumers. You have C&I, which we call B2B over here, or you could have residential, agricultural, others, utilities like, for example, DJB, Delhi Jal Board, DMRC, Metro Rail, etc., etc. That means any and every consumer, even if somebody has gone for an open access, that B2B consumer is still an abundant consumer of it, that discom, wherever he is, because he can't afford to go off grid. That is not possible. In the present context, the economics do not allow for it. Okay. Now let me take you to the next slide. Here you see some constructs. The first one is the AT&C loss profile of the different states. The red line you see, this is the national average, about 22%. AT&C loss, okay? Now, this is the trend of all India falling down. Like in 2018-19, it fell down to 22%. And these are the different states. There are certain states which are below, and there are certain states which are up. Delhi in this scenario, I think would be around 9%. But the last one, I think, that is less than 10%, 9%. At the least. Sorry? Arunachal Pradesh, Jammu Kashmir, these are all at a higher side. Okay, 50 plus. Now, another metric is called ACS minus ARR gap. Average cost of supply minus average revenue requirement, or whatever tariff you are charging to the consumer. What is the average cost of supply? This is the total cost structure. Now, out of the average cost of supply, the cost of power is nearly 80%. This is true for any discom. This is for all the discoms taken together, PFC report. But this is true for any discom. This will be in the same range, 70 to 80%. Okay. So average cost of supply, around 80% is only power purchase cost. And out of this, 50% is fixed cost of the PPA, two-part tariff, as you know. Okay. The balance is the other, like employee interest, depreciation, other cost, etc., etc. Okay. Here, for example, 56 per, sorry, not 56. So these are the different costs which you can see, but the major portion is the power purchase cost. And now the revenue structure. So the revenue from the operation is about 74%, whereas the tariff subsidy, this is the tariff subsidy is mainly for the state discoms, not for the private discount. The private discounts do not get the tariff subsidy. Online, hope I am audible. So
Yeah, the voice I think slightly fades in middle. I think if we're close to the mic, then it should be okay.
yeah, thank you. Is it now better?
Yeah, this is okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Now, what happens is you see the regulatory income, which is also, for example, non-tariff income other than the tariff. Whatever is other than the tariff, the revenue from operations is also known as tariff income. And apart from that, whatever you earn is called non-tariff income and other business income. States have the different regulations to treat the same. Okay. Now, the ROE, which I told, is also earned out of this, that 16% post-tax ROE that you are getting from there. Now, if there is a gap between this cost and the revenue, who will fund that? The discom funds it through the ROE. Worse still, if the ROE itself is not able to cover that gap, ACS minus ARR, for example, this gap you see, this is in terms of rupees per unit. For Andhra Pradesh, this is close to 9 rupees 50 paise positive. That means cost is higher by 9 rupees 50 paise than the revenue realized. I am afraid probably their ROE is not able to cover this gap. They are in red. They have to borrow state subsidy. Otherwise, they are not, even borrowers, I mean, the lenders will not give them the loan because of their rating, credit rating. Delhi is slightly positive. That means the average cost of supply of Delhi is low compared to their revenue realized. So this is the desired state, either zero or positive. So that means the discom is able to retain the entire post-tax 16% ROE with itself. It's a profitable business. For example, in Delhi, the discom where I was there, so their post-tax ROE is about 150 crores. And that was for year 2021 as per the tariff order. So that entire thing is completely yours. Now, to give you a typical ARR breakup, how it looks like in a, this is from one of the Delhi discoms. So power purchase cost, then O&M expenses, depreciation, ROCE, then subtotal, tariff in non-tariff income is subtracted, the total ARR. This is the ask. 10,238 crores is the ask of the discom submitted by them. Now, obviously, the regulatory commission will true it up. True it up means against each heading, they will say that what is the breakup. For example, when you ask for power purchase, so they will say like what all power purchases you have done, whether it followed MOD, merit order dispatch. If not, merit order disallowances will be there. You made some transactions on the power exchanges. You say, okay, fine, rupees. How many million units did you purchase beyond 5 rupees a unit? Can you justify? So that is a regular ongoing exercise which happens. Hmm.
When Delhi is positive, right? Does that mean that they are able to earn more than 15% or 16% is capped?
No, 16% is capped.
So let's say the savings which now that
ARR goes to the consumer back. It is a cost plus business. It will go back to the consumer.
so beyond 16%, they are not incentivized to improve any further.
I mean, that is, yeah, 16% ROE is the maximum. NTI, yes, you can earn more and more NTI you can earn, provided you are able to show there is an NTI, there is an OVI, for example, other business income. So if you see this NTI, whatever NTI is there, it will be subtracted because this is other than, NTI is what? It is incidental to the distribution assets. Suppose you allow telecom companies to install telecom towers within your distribution substation and you are earning revenue out of it. That means you are utilizing the distribution substation as an asset, as a land rental or whatever it is. And therefore that income they are going to subtract from your total ask. Okay. Now, but there is a catch. The caveat is like this: if you are able to prove that the non-tariff income is actually being used or plowed back, set off in a cost of operating that. For example, you have facilitated the installation of the telecom tower over there, but for doing that, you spend some amount. Okay. So you can set off the income from the telecom tower rental against that, and then the balance which was left out will be here. So it's all about how carefully and skillfully you are projecting your error. There are definitive and good ways and means given. Other one is other business income. So other business income, what happens is, like for example, consultancy business. BACS used to give a lot of consultancy to Ethiopian utility, for example. We went there along with Power Grid and NHPC 5-6 years ago, and we set up their entire distribution. So that income, the consultancy income, because our manpower is involved. So discounts manpower is involved. So in Delhi, they are able to retain 60% of the same with you on your balance sheet. Over and above, 16%. Okay, 40% flows back to the area. So this ratio might be different for the different states. So when you asked what is beyond 16%, these are some of the points which are there. Yeah. Okay. Now these are some of the reforms which have happened over the last 20 years, starting 2001, 2003 and all. So this, I think this slide will be made available to you. You can go through it. But what has happened in the past few years are very, very important. Okay. Now, for example, the draft national electricity policy, which came out last year, 2001, it talks a lot, and many of you would have gone through it. A very good concept called distributed system operation has been introduced, DSO. We'll see how it is. So DSO concept is the future of any utility, not only in India, but also abroad. And that is the recognition. They have brought a lot of clarification about how BESS is treated or defined and how it is treated in different segments. Like in transmission, how BESS is treated, distribution, how it will be treated at generation level, how it will be treated behind the meter, how it will be treated. Okay. You have market-based economic dispatch. The draft paper has already been released and it has been submitted to the commission. Probably we'll see some light of the day. I mean, some days back, there was a power strategy meet. Last Friday also, the second edition was there. It's hoped that the private MBD comes in by the close of this fiscal year. Similarly, your ancillary service regulations, they have been announced. They have been DSM regulations. You have grid code. The draft grid code is already out. GNA is already out. Transmission sharing charges is already out. So these are some of the regulatory landscape. And why I'm saying this is, I'll cover that in the last slide, because these are necessary for introduction of the retail competition. When you talk about the retail competition, these are very, very essential. So what is retail competition? In a simple language, there is a wires only DISCOM who is maintaining the wires, and there are multiple suppliers. And they are coming in and supplying to the consumers. Just like you have telecom in your hands and mobile phones are there. Jio, Voda, Airtel, mobile number portability. Exactly the same thing, which is already happening in Singapore or UK, for example. Now, Uday scheme is worth mentioning. These are the 4 objectives of the Uday scheme. And this has been instrumental follow-up to this is now the revamped distribution sector scheme. The two objectives are there. Any question from online team, please? Oh, okay. Rajiv, okay. Rajiv, if you have question, you can please unmute and ask, please. Okay, okay, thank you. Anybody, yeah, anytime. So RDSS, there are twin objectives. It's a long stream, 3 trillion rupee scheme. There are two objectives. One is reduction of the AT&C losses from 22% we saw to 12 to 15% by 2025. And second is reduction of the ACS minus ARR gap to 0. So like for Andhra, we saw close to 10 rupees. So that has to come down to 0. And there are multiple means how to achieve it, where the government is subsidizing. One of them is smart metering. And the second one is technology investment in the grid, digital platform. And these are some of the opportunities we'll talk about later. Now, this is in Delhi, what has happened prior to the privatization. The losses were rising at the rate of 20%. Post privatization, it went down from say 50 plus to maybe about 6.87. This is for BRPL. Similar story for BIPL and TPDDL. So this has happened, and this is one of the PPP model success stories. And obviously, there were reasons for the same. One of the reasons you can see here in this graph, what all technological interventions were done and what are being done now. So we have not to stop here. There has to be more and more interventions, DERMS, for example, which again is a very important. So this is the area where the present day modern utility also have to invest. So once your losses are here at 6.87, you will say, boss, what I'm going to earn apart from that 16%? What more I can do? So the different revenue models which are coming out here is electricity as a service or energy as a service platform. And this could be provided by DISCOM itself or through its empaneled partners or third party. Okay. Yeah. T&D losses, yes. Yeah. So if there is no commercial losses, T&D losses typically is a function of your network, loading pattern, unloading pattern, and the vintage. Okay. Typically, high voltage network would not have losses more than 1 to 2%, pure technical. 1 to 2%. When I say high voltage, it is from 33 kV to 11 kV. But the low voltages network would have typical losses up to 3% or 4% if it is pure play technical losses only. So ideally, this 6.87, what has been achieved, it is very difficult to get it down from there below further. Unless and until you are doing a complete overhaul of the network, A, B, the network planning. Very good question that you asked. I was forgetting that. See, there is a ratio, which is called HT to LT ratio, high tension to low tension ratio, the network which you are planning, capacity planning. More the high tension, lower the loss, because the high voltage, the losses will be low. You can't afford that. Why? Because you have to serve the consumer which are at the base of the pyramid. So that optimal mix is very, very important. For example, in Delhi, what we did was, the DISCOMs did was, they went for HVDS scheme, high voltage distribution, 11 kV. So they went on 11 kV till your home, neighborhood. And then you have a 20, 25 kV transformer step down 11 kV to 413 volts. Okay. So that the last mile, only that last mile was low voltage. Otherwise, up to your home neighborhood, maybe 100 meters or 50 meters, it was all 11 kV. So that was a wonderful way of reducing the technical losses. Okay. So this HT to LT ratio becomes very, very important. Number one. Number two, the loading pattern. The DISCOMs, what they do is today, they plan the upgrade of the network, the distribution transformers, 11 kV feeders, etc., on the basis of their peak load. As you know, the peak load is there only for less than 1% time of the entire year. Delhi says, for example, till date, Delhi has recorded 7.4 gigawatts, 7409 megawatt to be precise. That was the peak load. But it was for how many seconds? It was for maybe couple of seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds, as recorded by the SCADA. 15-minute average agar loge aap, so that is about 7,300 something. Now you can't plan your network for 7,300 megawatt RTC. Just like power, you can't have the network RTC. Otherwise, what will happen is the loading, average loading of the transformers and the feeders goes down to 30%. 80% time of the year, it is loaded almost about 30%. But the transformer, sorry, I'm getting too technical, but it is very important to understand that the loading optimal efficiency of the transformer to operate at 99% efficiency. Transformers are static devices, so losses are very minimal, 1% or something. But the caveat is it should be loaded to 50-60% of the rated capacity. 80% time of the year, it is loaded at 30%. Less than 1% time of the year, it is loaded at 110%. Both extremes. That is the crux. Sorry, I forgot your name. Abhinav. That is the crux and that is the key to reduce this Abhinav further down. And that is where the DISCOMs are working on. How to optimize on the balancing of the load. And therein comes the role of the, for example, battery storage, distributed storage, demand response, etc., etc. That becomes valuable. Okay. Right. Let me go further. So that was the overview of the overall distribution sector. This is about the network and the customer operation. There are 4 major functional verticals of a distribution. US. Okay. In US, for example, it's a vast range. If you talk about Texas, it will have a different profile compared to ERCOT region or compared to California. Okay. So I visited one of them called National Grid, New York area. So they have around say 5 to 6% in Delhi. Yeah, they have. There are certain pockets in Delhi which have already achieved 5%. This is complete Delhi. So there are some, like for example, South Extension, Lajpat Nagar area. These are some of the very good pockets. Nehru Place, 3%, 4% also is achievable over there. Because most of the consumer mix over there is HT. Commercial area. It's all commercial area, right? HT. So more the HT, the lower the losses would be. Okay. Yeah. So these are the 4 broad operational, functional, you can say, of the DISCOM. One is the asset planning and operations. Because it's a combined business, you know, so carriage and content. Network planning, as I said, the criteria is flawed, I would say. It should not be based only on the peak load. You should talk about the average loading. But you can't do load shedding also, because if you don't plan for peak load and the peak load comes, the thing will be overloaded and you will be in a lurch. Okay. So how do you do that? So demand response or distributed BESS as a service becomes very, very important. Okay. So network planning now will have a lot of energy storage into its fold. Like we are also trying to do one such project for Delhi DISCOM. Earlier, when I was there, we did that at a DT level, battery storage 6 location. So execution asset mapping. Asset mapping is very, very important on the GIS. Otherwise, you never know exactly the loading is coming from which area. Condition-based maintenance, predictive and prescriptive. This is also very important. Augmentation of the network basis, all these also very, very important. So the SAIDI, and KAIDI norms are getting stringent. So for those, if you are not aware, system average, average interruption index and duration index, SAIDI and SAIFI. Frequency. So those indices are called the reliability indices. So they have to be on a lower side. Okay. Network operations. So demand forecasting, power procurement, scheduling, market operation, both real-time market and the day-ahead market, and deviation settlement mechanism. This is on the power side of the content side. This is on the grid side. Okay. And there is a project management office for the distribution loss reduction. Then you have meter operation analytics. This is one of the areas which is very, very important. AMI deployment and their O&M of the meters at each voltage level, meter data management, theft. Customer operation. This is the other spectrum. So where meter reading, billing, collection, demand side, behavioral programs, DER, DSO becomes very, very important. Again, this is a deep dive into that. Those things, I'll leave it for now. This is a, you can say, DISCOM operations problem map. This is operational technology message bus. This is a deep technical, so maybe I'll skip these for the brevity of this But idea is there is a way in which you can completely automate the real-time operation, and this real-time operation is integrated with your customer. So network and customer form a loop. Two sides of the same coin. The distribution network operation, one side is the customer, another side is the network. So they are highly intertwined. Now, this is important to see the DISCOM's transition to DSO. Single unidirectional becoming multi-directional, and then within the consumers also there is peer-to-peer which is happening. Now, very soon, I think there will be a solar policy in Delhi where they'll also say that peer-to-peer trading is allowed. So probably that is also going to happen. Now, the initial, sorry. Yes, I'm coming to that. So before that, what are the conventional role of a distributed system operator? One is the connection and disconnection of the DER. Second is planning, maintenance, and management of networks, supply outages, energy billing. All these things are there. But additional roles would be like peak load management through DER. We'll see in the next slide. Network congestion management alone through the DER. Provide reactive power support to the TSO or transmission system operators. In our case, in our country, this TSO is nothing but, for example, RLDCs or NLDC. They are the TSO. Then you have a voltage support and technical validation of the power market. This technical validation for the power market is the local energy market we are talking about, which is also termed as peer-to-peer market, where a consumer, which is also a prosumer, because the consumer also has a, no, not this one, also has a rooftop or a distributed energy resources on its top. For example, demand response is a kind of resource. Managed charging is a kind of resource. Rooftop solar is a resource. So she is also injecting into the grid. Now, this is being settled by the DISCOM, net metering, you might have heard. But then the peer-to-peer market, just like your wholesale market, your peer-to-peer market, the platform is there. And each other. Consumer to consumer. Consumer to consumer. Consumer to DISCOM is already happening at a regulated rate. That is happening. Net metering, APPC, average power procurement cost. That trading between DISCOM and consumer is already happening. Like, for example, in Delhi, one step ahead, virtual net metering and group net metering are there. So a group of consumers are there, they don't have a roof, but there is one single consumer who has a roof. So that consumer and all those, they can form a group. And they'll set off their solar amongst themselves, and any surplus will be banked with the DISCOM. Now, totally this banking with the DISCOM can be done away with. Peer-to-peer, within the peers only they can do it. Okay, so that is peer infrastructure of DISCOM. Obviously, it doesn't make sense to have a complete separate wheeling network. It doesn't make sense. It's only a commercial settlement. Okay, very interesting question. So it happens like this. There are certain distributed energy resource providers like you and me. I have a 5 kilowatt system, you have a 20 kilowatt system solar. And I see during the daytime, there are certain slots where you don't need a power and I need a power and vice versa. But you don't know that I need a power and I don't know that you have the power. How will that happen? There is a aggregator platform, power trading platform. There are demand aggregators. There are DER aggregators. Aggregators will come into play. So you are registered with your aggregator. I am registered with the aggregator. That aggregator has a visibility through the real-time platform, and he does the matchmaking and the price discovery through the algorithm. Very similar to wholesale market, the national market, the IEX or PXIL that we see. Yeah, algorithms will slightly be varying. I mean, it will depend upon, like, for example, there the congestion management is done by POSOCO, real-time congestion. Suppose trade has been settled, but there is a congestion in the network. Power actually can't flow. The generator is ready, consumer is ready, but the network is not ready. Curtailment happens. Who manages that? POSOCO. Similarly here, the rooftop solar guy is ready, he is producing, and I am also ready, I want to consume, but then there is a congestion in the local area network there. Who is aware of that? DSO. So similar concept, the DSO becomes the validator of the local energy market, or in other words, the DSO can operate that peer-to-peer trading market, okay, as a neutral body, and let the consumers trade amongst themselves. There is a bigger problem and challenge to it. Maybe we can discuss it later. This is the overall concept of a distributed system operator, which is sitting here. And this guy has visibility of all the upstream generators and downstream rooftop solar, DER, etc. Okay. And then he is managing what? These small DERs. So here is the DSO DERMS, Distributed Energy Resource Management System. This system actually tracks the real-time positioning and loading of these assets. So this is 11 kV bus, this one. This is 33 by 11 kV transformer, step down. And these are small transformers or distribution transformers, 11 kV bus. There are certain loads and prosumers connected here also. And there would be consumers here like you and me, our houses. We have solar, battery, demand response, EV charging, etc., etc. Okay. Now imagine these are like arteries in our body. Okay, if you have seen the single line diagram on a GIS map, and if you see that, it will look like that. Or you are just now going to land from a plane in the night, and you see the roads and the lines, and right. If I can make you understand. So that is how it is. So this is very, very complex. So these are all in maybe kilowatts, but taken together, they'll turn into megawatt. And this is just a section. So this DSO has to deal with millions of such distributed consumer. Today, the state load dispatch center has to deal with maybe 5-6 discoms. But the DSO has to deal with millions, and therefore the advanced situational awareness in the real time is the need of the hour. Otherwise, these all are must-run stations. If they are pushing in every time, voltage problem, loading problem, congestion problem will happen, and the grid will become destabilizing from the bottom, not from the upstream, but from the bottom. And fortunately, this is the source of the demand also. So if you are able to manage here, you are also able to manage the demand and the utility supply. So a value lies in the demand or the bottom of the pyramid. And that is where the DSO comes into picture. This is what has already been envisaged in the draft national electricity policy. And probably it will be slowly incorporated in the grid code also. Okay. Now, these are the 5 different constructs of a utility of the future. I was talking about the SEPA. This is for the United States. Wires only. And the 2 axes you see here, this is from low to high. By the way, how much time do you have? 8 minutes. Okay. I'll have to run faster. Yeah. So wires, this is the DER operational control, like rooftop solar, demand response, etc. Operational control from low to high in the hands of the utility. And this is the deployment control in the hands of utility from low to high. So if it is DER is not there, only is I am pure play wire operator. So I don't bother. I don't have control. So I am here. But if I have a higher control in operations, I am here. Distribution system platform. I am here when I have a more deployment control. I can say that, okay, you deploy here, you don't deploy here. You might have heard that some utility are saying you can't deploy solar rooftop more than their sanctioned load. You can't deploy.
Abhishek, sorry to interrupt. Can you just keep your mic closer? Thanks.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So you can't deploy there. So this is interconnection and integration. Then you have a DR provider, and finally you are an energy services company providing the complete platform. These are the different distribution functions which we have seen earlier. And these are the comparison of different models with different pros and cons. Okay. And examples, for example. So wires only are there in Texas and Australia. Digital DSP platform is in New York, which is proposed. Most of the IOUs or the discoms in United States are following I&I, integration, interconnection. Just like we in Delhi or India also, we are doing that. Okay. Green Mountain Power or CPS Energy, examples of the DER providers. These are small utilities, very small. And as of now, energy service company, none identified to the date. Okay. Now, these are some of the distribution functions linked with the models proposed in the study, but then may not be always there, and these are the possible way forwards they are promoting. So what I'm trying to say is, this is a peep into the future, which they have done. This is study done in 2019, 3 years ago. So I was fortunate to be part at the launch of this event in October 2019, there in SF. So what they have said is, this is what they are deliberating. And if you go to their website now, you'll find out that they have done a lot and improved a lot on this study also. Many of them are applicable to India, or maybe in India, there could be something in between here and there. So we have to find out where. So we are saying that we are going to be a DSO. Now examples are, for example, wires only and owner operator wires. So energy markets in North America and Europe, we talked about that. DSP or distribution system platforms. These are the bulk ISOs like ISO, Cal ISO is there. Then you have DR, interconnection integrator, most of the IOUs in the US. Then you have a DR provider, nothing as of date, but then for example, Comet, Marketplace or Georgia and CPS, etc., they are having some kind of these. Many utility run virtual net metering, community solar programs are these kind of things. So for example, in Delhi also you have virtual net metering now. We are moving in that direction. Full energy services company, not so much, but street lighting and district heating programs are relevant examples, but it's not much over there. What are the opportunities? Obviously, these are some of the enablers, and we have our strength in the digital and the technology right now we have. So what are the opportunities we have as a distribution utility? Where I said return on equity, incentive flow loss reduction, NTI, OBI also, cost reduction. Then next is, for example, dispatch operations, market-based, then carbon services to the B2B segment, green tariff to the consumer, more than 100 kilowatt load, utility services, operations, optimization. These all includes, I mean. Energy as a service, the last section, I'll try to complete in 5 minutes. Okay. This is very, very important to see. Energy as a service, you see that the way to future is like this: energy advisory service, asset installation, and energy management. You could be at either one of them or all of them. In fact, you provide end-to-end, you are qualifying as energy as a service. And this can be done not only by the utilities for their consumers, but also players like us. We are very adequately placed, and there are regulations like, for example, green open access, which is there, which enables us to green them, which is our main goal, our DNA, that we want to be the best renewable energy company. And how do you do that? So you penetrate them through these means. And what are the drivers for the EASs? SDGs, you are all aware, mainly 7, 9, 11, 12, and 13. These are the SDGs which are driving the quest for renewable, and there is a need for more flexibility in the grid due to the rise of VRE. Traditional utilities are now changing their role. Electricity sector becoming more democratic. You are participating in them as a prosumer, and digitalization of the electricity sector is happening. So it is more like a customized product. Electricity is having a color. It is having a time of its own, time of use tariff, etc. And it will also have real-time pricing, RTP. Today you have TOD, which is a very traditional dinosaur form of tariff. You will have RTP, real-time tariff, real-time pricing, which is already there in California, for example. Okay, so depending upon the hour of the day or the minute of the hour, you'll have real-time pricing. For example, in California, in August 2020, when they had a lot of blackouts, they introduced real-time pricing to remove. So sorry for this, to take off some of the load from the grid. So increase the prices so that you shut down. So this real-time pricing also becomes very, very important. And for that, you need to have a complete digital. So these are some of the areas of service like energy advice. What are the revenue streams and what are the examples here? Energy assets also the revenue stream, energy management also revenue stream. So what I'm trying to say is this is a very interesting area where in some of them we are already there, and some of them we can get into in a big way. Okay. Some of the key stakeholders are like these. Across each of the type of the service, the type of the stakeholders are there. And these are the different like DER suppliers. We can follow over here. We can also go here and here. There is a good case for possible partnerships between REIPPs and the technology companies, like for example, anybody on online having any questions, please? If you have any questions. Okay. So there is a good amount of synergy where the technology companies and the REIPPs like us, we can collaborate, or we can develop our own digital capability, which we are trying to do, and go ahead with it. The last slide, these are some of the key regulatory and statutory enablers in India for EASS or transformation which is happening. Remember the first slide when we talked about the reforms in the electricity sector in the last few years. What has happened is green energy open access rules notified, BES they have clarified, ancillary services regulations they have brought in, DSM regulations have come in. This is demand side management, not the deviation settlement. This is demand side management. IEGC draft one they have come up with, EV charging, state EV policies. Lot many things have to be done. Right of consumer rules have been notified, for example, and many more such interventions. Small things are coming up. But the major ones, like for example, reforms in the market. Again, up to what extent you need to be, you can't have 100% short-term spot market exposure. That will ruin you. In UK, for example, one of my friends, he said that his retail price plan was linked to the wholesale price. The moment the gas prices went up, the Ukraine crisis, he got a shocker of the bill. So he had to bear it because he didn't cancel it earlier. He had to pay for 2 months. The third month, he said, boss, no, I'm going for a cap rate. So obviously, market is good, but then it's a kind of dual thing. Now, the most important thing is that the distributed energy resources have to be recognized as a grid resource and to be recognized in the grid code as a top dispatchable resource, which is already there in, for example, California. So demand response is the first resource to be dispatched, the cleanest and the cheapest resource. It has been recognized by the CPUC, California Public Commission. This needs to be done in India. Probably they are moving in that direction, where DSO in the draft national electricity policy, they have done it. So with this, I come to an end of the slide. And thanks a lot for your patient hearing. These are some of the, so this one is the retail competition in India. What are the factors which need to be considered? I think Mentimeter was there. Now we can run this. In the meanwhile, you guys can have a look at this. What has happened elsewhere? Wherever the retail competition has been reduced, what is already present over there? Now there is a one question only in the Mentimeter. After that, floor is open. I mean, you can ask questions. We can have a discussion. That will be more fruitful.
Shamya?
Yeah, I'm just presenting the Mentimeter exercise from my end.
Okay.
So everyone, the call, you must have seen a Mentimeter screen up there. So just I request you go to www.menti.com and put in the code 19558328, which you can see on the screen. And you can select the appropriate question in there.
So the idea is like this: you can select any one of them, or I mean, what you think is the most important one of them, which is the most important factor for ushering in retail reforms in India. So are we done now? Oh, no, it's coming on.
I think we give another 30 seconds, Abhishek. I think we're still receiving some responses.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting and predictable also. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we can continue now. I think we have quite a lot of people have responded.
Yeah. So I think we have how much? 19, 22, 29, 29 responses. Yeah.
So,
So
Abhishek, I
this,
request you to speak at the podium. I think this mic is getting volume is getting a bit low. So if you can last minute, go speak there. Thank you.
yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Soumya. Thanks a lot. And thanks everyone for participating in this one. So yeah, as predicted, the metering of the consumption 100% is the basis which you can usher in the retail reforms. Otherwise, if you're not able to account for a consumption, you won't be able to. The retailers will not be able to get their due. And followed by the lowering of the AT&C loss. So you see the objective of the RDSS are these two, followed by the gap between the ACS and ARR for the utilities, which we are talking about the revamped distribution sector scheme. The government has mandated two objectives. One is the AT&C losses have to go down to 12 to 15% range by 2025. And the second one is the ACS ARR gap should be reduced to zero. How this can be achieved? Metering. So when you say metering not only the consumer meter, but also the grid meter at each and every voltage level, right? For example, the DISCOM gets power at input at 66 kV. So 66 kV, there will be a meter, then transformer output 33 kV, 11 kV, distribution transformer, HT side, low voltage side, and then at the consumer side. The whole chain of the meters actually helps in the energy accounting. So with this, I'll come to an end. Thanks a lot for your active participation and thank you.
Thank you, Abhishek, for taking part of the session. Much appreciated. And for rest of people on the call and within the audience, thank you for participating in this. And we hope you got to learn something new about this. Thank you very much.